So let's start. Well, we welcome all of you and thank you for your valuable participation in a new chapter of our Ennube Cloud Talks with a very special guest like SDocs. So when it comes to generating documents, the fastest, easiest, and most secure electronic signature solution integrated into the Salesforce platform, SDocs takes a leading role. So please let me introduce you to our awesome speakers. Let's start with Sarah Green, a senior account executive who strives to help customers solve requirements for document generation and e-signature through effective workflow automation. Sarah continues to align SDocs to meet her customers' technology and customer satisfaction goals. We have Burt, an experienced solutions engineer with a passion for helping business leverage their Salesforce investment to work more efficiently. During his time at SDocs, Paul has transformed document and e-signature workflows for dozens of companies from small businesses to enterprises. And of course, Alex Garcia, our CEO. Alex is a co-founder of Ennube Solutions and a California native. He has over a decade of consulting experience of innovation and cloud technology systems, working with the best companies in the world. So Alex, please.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you so much. And thank you to our guests as well. This is great. You know, I think this is the first webinar that we've done around document generation. And really, we wanted to do this being that we have a great use case and we've got great customer stories now with SDocs, and we've implemented it. But the topic for today's webinar really was sort of native document generation, and so what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about what it means to be native and why is it important to be native. And so I'm going to pass the mic over to Sarah and let her tell us as to what does native mean and why is it important to be native in Salesforce?
Well, thanks, Alex, and hello, everyone. Thank you for having SDocs on the webinar today. My name is Sarah Green. I'm a senior account executive here at SDocs. I have my fellow colleague Paul on the line as well. We look forward to speaking with everyone today, and we are going to take a deep dive into the advantages of working within a native solution like SDocs and what that means. And what some of the key differentiators are between native and non-native apps on the App Exchange. I'm going to kind of kick off the conversation with a little bit of education around that. And then I'm going to turn the mic over to Paul, and he's going to show you a quick demo on how to generate documents using SDocs within the Salesforce system and applying the e-signature solution that we also offer and what that kind of looks like from an end user experience. If we have time at the end, we'd love to show you a little bit of what's under the hood in SDocs and kind of how you can set up your templates, but that's kind of what we plan to talk about today.
Look forward to it.
All right, well, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about why native matters. In our world as SDocs, being a 100% native solution, we have found that it is a big advantage to Salesforce customers overall. So we're going to try and speak a little bit about language, some confusing language that you may be hearing, how a native app is architectured versus a non-native app, and kind of try to get around some of these stereotypes that you may hear around this word. So the truth is, native is a very buzzword within the SaaS space. There's some confusion to the definition and the importance of this position, and we're going to talk about that. In general, a Salesforce native app means that we run 100% within your Salesforce core stack. Both the front end and back end of our tool is processed right within your Salesforce instance. Let's kind of show you how native apps became about. Well, look at this timeline. It kind of proves where we were founded. We all know that Salesforce has been around for a while, founded in 1999, and shortly thereafter in 2005 is when the Salesforce App Exchange became available. It provided a really essential market to overall Salesforce customers, as you could go to this marketplace and bring in solutions that would enhance your overall Salesforce experience. Most of the native apps, the App Exchange solutions between 2005 and 2009 were all non-native solutions. And the reason for that is because the Force.com platform did not become available to build on until 2009. Shortly thereafter, in 2010, is when you saw the first native listings starting to appear within the App Exchange. One of those was SDocs. Still to this day, SDocs is the only 100% native solution for document generation, and we also have the e-signature solution that is native layered on top. So how does the native solution work? We'll talk a little bit about the architecture. It is a managed package that you would install into your Salesforce instance. Configuration and setup is pretty instant. You can pretty much take care of this within a 5 to 10 minute period. How it works for the end user is they would log on to Salesforce. They would update information on a record. And then by either triggering a button, or this can be done automatically, they would engage in our solution to generate a document. The document is generated right within your Salesforce instance and then returned back to the user for them to view, email, print, edit, all the capabilities that you have to launch the document from that point. The key point here is that there is no cloud-to-cloud connection happening. It is all happening within your Salesforce instance. This holds true for SDocs as a native document generator solution, but as well as any native solution that may be running within your Salesforce instance.
And so the pitfall there really is then, right, the data leaving Salesforce when it's a non-native solution.
Correct. Let's jump into the key benefits because you just nailed it on the head. First and foremost, security. It's true, you know, your sensitive data is not being transported between cloud to cloud. It doesn't matter how you're transporting that information. The fact that it's leaving the cloud at any point, you do run into data risk. We talk a lot about regulatory compliance. This is important to understand because if you're working within a certain industry that has some sort of regulatory requirement, whether that's FedRAMP or HIPAA or some of the other FinServ requirements around Salesforce, if Salesforce has met those requirements or compliance, by default, a native solution like SDocs is also going to adhere to those compliance standards. So it's very important to know when we look at security vetting processes for our customers, we tend to pass those very, very quickly, and we can start implementing right away.
And one place that we like to get asked for a lot, because we do a lot of work in healthcare and life sciences as well as financial services, where you deal with PHI, which is patient health information, or PII, which is personally identifiable information. And so you've got either medical records or credit cards or social security numbers that sometimes have to be stored in the system. And in order for Salesforce to be compliant, you have to work with Salesforce Shield, which means it encrypts the data at rest. And not to go too deep into what Salesforce Shield is, I mean, that's a topic for a whole nother webinar. But can you let me know, does SDocs work with Shield and the encrypted functionalities of the CRM?
It does, because you're encrypting your instance. And so again, we're running within that Salesforce instance. So we adhere to those encryption standards.
Awesome.
Yep. A second key benefit to a native app, just in general, is speed in which the solution performs. When we're looking at document generation, it would be the speed in which your end user presses a button to in which they see the document. It's pretty instantaneous in our solution. And the reason for that is there is no cloud-to-cloud connection happening. So we don't have any kind of lag time. There is no single sign-on. There is no retry logic that you need to take into consideration with a native app like our solution. Also, from a speed perspective, quicker to install and quicker to basically get up and running right away. I mentioned it earlier on, usually takes 5 to 10 minutes for an admin to install our app and to work through the first level of configuration. Simplicity. So, we built this solution for Salesforce users on Salesforce. We share a lot of the functionality that Salesforce already has launched into the market and that you are used to working with today. We also use the same nomenclature, sharing icons, and so it's a very familiar product typically when someone starts working within it. For instance, we leverage Process Builder for automation. So as an admin, you know and understand how to set up Process Builder. So using our solution within that Salesforce functionality is a pretty simple tool for most admins to start.
That's great.
Cost. So it's undeniable that a native app is typically a little less expensive than our major competitors. The reason for that is because we're not duplicating infrastructure costs. We're leveraging a platform that you are already paying for, and so therefore we can pass along some of the savings to our customers. You also do save on APIs, as well as some variable costs that we see our competitors charging for maybe per document or per envelope metering charges. You're not going to get that with SDocs and SSign. So we're going to talk just a couple seconds about maybe reasons why you would go with an off-platform solution. Listen, a native app does have to adhere to the Salesforce regulations and limitations that we're given. There are some things that we can't solve. So we listed them right here for you. It's pretty simple and easy. If you need to use video or streaming, you may want to look at an off-platform solution. Maybe you want to use other CRM solutions outside of Salesforce. Maybe looking at an off-platform solution would be better for you. When you're considering data, we can pull data from other solutions or external servers, so that's not a reason to look off-platform. But we wanted to kind of list some of the reasons here for your customers.
And I love that about you and working with SDocs as well, and that you would even put that on here, because I think, having elaborated now a couple projects with you, you're really invested in the success of your customers. So, I really appreciate that slide.
Thank you. We are a very customer-centric company. So let's talk a little bit about non-native apps. How do they work? How are they architectured? It's pretty simple. It's all laid out right here for you. So again, Salesforce is connecting to their cloud, processing your data, and then returning back, in our instance, a document that they can use. But again, you kind of see this cloud-to-cloud connection happening with a non-native app. One of the things I wanted to talk about is some of the misleading language that we do tend to hear in the market as we talk to customers around the world and they ask us, well, us versus a competitor, how does that work? They said like hybrid native or native component. What does that mean? Guys, it's actually very black and white, and I'm going to show it to you today. This is some of the misleading language that we see on the App Exchange today. Native component, creating without leaving Salesforce. It's pretty simple. You just need to see under the highlights on the App Exchange listing if native app is listed. You can even do what we call, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, another key point there I saw the no limits, right? That you don't throttle. And it's super important for high volume customers that need to send, a lot of documents, especially if you've got a large team. The throttling perspective of it can balloon the cost quite high. So, I know that they were talking about the native functionality, but that's also a key takeaway there from that little section of SDocs.
Yeah. So we're going to pick on SpringCM just for a minute. We basically pulled this right off the App Exchange. This is where we can kind of identify this misleading language. If you look at kind of the bold highlights underneath the picture of the computer, it says easy access to powerful functionality like share, edit, and tag without leaving Salesforce. Here's the quick test you can do to ensure that it is a native app or that your data is not leaving the Salesforce instance. We call this an installation test. We have our customers run this all the time. It's pretty simple, you guys. If you see this checkbox where you have to, yes, grant access to a third-party website, you're engaging with a non-native app. It's that simple.
Yeah, and for again back to healthcare and financial services, it just the level of due diligence that you have to go under in order to install or bring on a new application that processes sensitive data outside of your current approved stack can be months, if not longer, from what we've seen. So one of the key benefits of having an approved application ready to install that's native is that your tech stack's already approved and compliant. And that's super awesome.
We agree. We're going to walk you through I'm going to walk you through a quick use case, and then Paul's actually going to show you this use case live in the demo. We're going to take one of our customers, Jaguar Land Rover. They came to us because they had a really tedious contract generation process where they were printing, downloading wet signature brochures and contracts for auction cars that they would launch monthly. They decided to bring in a native app because the truth is they didn't have a choice. They could not bring in a non-native solution. The data was too sensitive and they weren't in a position that they wanted to go through the security vetting process that Alex basically just explained. We started engaging with them. We put together a POC and was very quick to basically bring us in and start working together. What they did and what we did is we allowed them to streamline and secure their processes more effectively. We created these very complex order forms, contracts, and brochures that you're basically going to see today. And then we would send them through the Salesforce system out to folks for signature. We do have a little ROI to show, which is nice that JLR did report that they had a 65% improvement for internal processing time after the SDoc solution was implemented. Here's the process. It's pretty simple. They went from a 6-step process to a 1-step process with bringing in a document generator. We're going to talk, Paul's going to show you quite a bit of these advanced capabilities today. But, looking at SDocs overall holistically, we do offer a template library. So as an SDocs customer, we give you close to 15 different templates that you can bring in and start using right away, as well as these cool reusable components that you can embed into your templates. We're going to show you 2 key feature functionality today. One is editing documents on the fly. We call it live edit or in-flight editing, where you're going to generate a document and right in the browser you can edit it. We're also going to show you what we call our runtime prompts feature functionality, where you can send your end user through a list of questions and prompt them for answers, and then based on their answers it will generate the document for them. He's going to show you some of the really cool conditional logic and dynamic images that you can pull into templates. We're going to run this through a one-click automation today. A couple things I wanted to mention that we do run very well within a community environment, as well as we're mobile capable. So people ask a lot about that.
That's great. That's great. And I would say, I love the in-flight editing, and, was one of the reasons why we selected SDocs in the past, is because of the fact that the users really wanted that. But some of the feedback that we got also is that it could be not ideal to have editing. And so can you toggle that in SDocs to be able to edit or not edit it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just a feature you can turn on. So we always suggest, you're right, it's got to be the right use case to allow them to open up a document and edit fully. If you don't want that, but you want part of the document to be editable, you can run it through this runtime prompt, which is what Paul's going to show today. So you can kind of layer the flexibility of the document through these different feature functionality sets.
Well, that's great.
Well, great. I am going to pause here. Rodrigo, do we have any questions I should answer, or we're going to wait till the end?
No, for the moment we can continue, Sarah.
Great. Okay. I am going to turn the mic over to Paul at this point, and he is going to run you through that live use case of the JLR workflow.
Actually, guys, we have one first question from Anna Cook. We are a paving company currently using mainly leads and opportunities in Salesforce. Is this capable of creating quick proposals and easy invoices?
Yes. That is basically what our product does, is it's create templates, merge in SDocs, merge in SDocs data, and then output your desired format. So whether that's a invoice or contract.
And that's where we come in as an implementation partner with SDocs. SDocs is very easy to install, but we help to both create the process and the automations around if you wanted to create the one-click, and then help you also upload your templates and train your users on how to modify and work with SDocs templates and modules. So we'd be happy to help there also. Thank you for your question. All right, and let's let Paul go off from this. I'm excited to see this demo.
All right, excellent. Hi there, everyone. This is Paul Burt with SDocs. Everyone should now be able to see my screen and hopefully hear me well. And like Sarah explained, what I'm going to take you through today is going to be a demo of the Jaguar Land Rover use case that we've produced. And something to keep in mind prior to us going through this demo is that this is really just one of the ways that SDocs and SSign can be utilized to streamline your document generation process. We can also, towards the end of today's call, talk about some of the other ways that you can use our products to do just that, whether it's automation, batch document creation, and really a host of other options. But for today's demo, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the end user experience of manually generating a document, sending it out for e-signature, and of course, the recipient side of things, what it looks like to receive and sign a document. If you do have questions along the way, feel free to pop those into the chat window. So for this example, what we're working with is an auction record in Salesforce, and you will notice this is a custom object. So keep in mind that SDocs is going to be completely compatible with all standard and custom objects that you may be using. Now, to start this document generation process, what we will do is click this Generate Auction Agreement button that we've placed on our page. Upon clicking this, we have it set up so to where it's going to take the user to a page that is asking them for a few key pieces of input, and this is using a SDocs feature that we call runtime prompts. Now, this is useful because it's going to allow the user to make some key decisions that are influencing content within the document, but without making it a completely, editable process where they have to open a document, manually change information, and then continue their workflow. So you'll see in this case, what we're asking our user to decide is which dealer cities need to be included in the catalog. So I could go through, and if we were only concerned with vehicles in Sydney, just select Sydney. But for the context of this use case, I'll go ahead and select all of the cities. Now, runtime prompts also allows you to ask for other types of input, like text-based input if we wanted our user to key in some free text. You can also prompt them for a date input and a couple of other types. But now that we've answered this question, we'll go ahead and click Generate Document. And at this stage, what it's going to do is take the data from the Salesforce record where we initiated this process, combine it with the answer to the question that we provided, and merge that all into the template to produce our output file. So now we'll go ahead and open up this file. Yeah, go ahead.
Paul, let me stop you there real quick. Just one quick question, but I wanted to clarify this. I haven't understood. The runtime prompts feedback can be saved back to the record. Is that correct?
That is a great question. And yes, the feedback can be saved back to a designated field in Salesforce so that not only is it being captured in the document, but also reflected in the database.
Awesome. Thanks.
Great question. So what we're looking at now is the document that we've just produced. And you'll see that on the first page, we have a highly formatted, cover page. You can think of this in the context of maybe those proposals, going back to that question that we had a few minutes ago. In this first page, we do have some data flowing into our document, like where the auction is taking place, the date that it's sent to occur, the time that it's set to start at, and the specific address. We can also set this up so that there are dynamic images. You could imagine that, let's say that instead of a Jaguar Land Rover, auction, maybe we're auctioning off a Ferrari, and we want this image to automatically reflect the brand that we're working with. It's absolutely capable of taking it a step beyond just static images like we see here. Now, scrolling through this document, the next page that we have here is really just a list of all the different vehicles that are going to be sold at this auction. This is the SDocs related list functionality, and this is intended to work with related records. So whether you're looking at line items connected to an opportunity, contacts linked to an account, products on a quote, any of those one-to-many relationships are a perfect marriage with this function that we're looking at here. And what this is going to do is produce a dynamic repeating table that is going to show us information for all of the records that we're concerned with. In this case, the list of vehicles that are being sold at the auction. You'll notice here that we are grouping the vehicles into their respective cities. And you're also capable of doing things like filtering these lists, sorting them out, really any of those more complex manipulations beyond just displaying data. You'll see that in this example, we are just pulling in a couple of key fields like the make, the year, and the person that holds the vehicle, who owns the vehicle. Now, scrolling through the rest of this document, you'll see that we also have just some vehicle spec sheets on the remaining pages. This one here is just giving us really the key information about how to interpret the spec sheets. But this is one of those specific spec sheets, again, bringing in an image of the vehicle, some information on the optional trim that is included, and other things like, the pricing of various features and so on.
Hey, Paul.
And throughout the remainder of this, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Paul, we had a question from the audience, and I think it's relevant to where we are. Is there a limit to the number of rows that can come over for a related list? Well, question someone asked.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there technically does exist an upper limit, but I can tell you that that upper limit is extremely high. We recently put our product through a stress test and found that it was capable of processing 125,000 rows in a single document, which is beyond anything that I've seen in a live use case. But, it does exist, but it's very, very high.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Hey guys, we actually have a new question from Chris Holland. Is it possible to upload an existing PDF template into a SDocs template?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is a capability of our tool. You are able to take a pre-created PDF and upload it to the system. You can even map Salesforce data on top of it. And that's what the process of creating a template can look like. So that was specifically developed for sophisticated, government style forms that have to be pixel perfect. SDocs is totally capable of handling that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, great questions. Is everyone still able to see my screen?
No, right now.
No, yep, we lost the screen.
Great. Okay, just bear with me. My apologies. It looks like I just lost network connection. Just bear with me, everyone.
Are there any other questions we can answer while he's reconnecting?
No, actually, Chris Hollins was our last question.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like I'm reconnected. Just bear with me for 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Great, yeah, and it looks like we're doing great on time as well. And so, we're really excited about seeing the demo, and then I think we'll have enough time to look at the back end for a little bit as well and see what the configuration side of SDocs looks like, and potentially a little bit about the template. So as time permits, we'll cover everything we can.
Yeah, sure. In the meantime, we have a new question from Chris Holland. Is it possible to trigger the document generation via a record change, such as a process builder?
Yes.
Yes, that's a great question. And that is absolutely something that we can do. It can be based on a records creation. It can be based on a record update. It can also be based on a timing rule. All of those are valid candidates.
Great.
And the nice thing about that is that it's going to just use native Salesforce functionality like Process Builder, Flow Builder, or triggers to drive that style of automation. There's no proprietary tools that need to be learned.
And so we could even send for signature automatically to where we don't necessarily have to initiate the sign request?
That is exactly right.
Okay, because yeah, it's like automatically generating the document, but then getting the workflow for it to go automatically out for signature, but it sounds like that also supported.
Yeah, and I think actually that's what Paul was getting ready to show the team next, was basically what it's going to look like from an end user experience once they receive the document through email to sign. I also just wanted to mention that we do support in-person signing as well, or you can connect it to USB like Topaz to sign on a signature pad. You're back up, Paul.
Yeah, we got you back, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have your audio.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right, my apologies, everyone. The beauties of live demos. Okay, so what I wanted to show really for the remainder of this document is just at the bottom of this page, we have more of a contract style section, and this is where we're going to ask for our recipient to sign off in their participation within this auction. And what we're going to ask them to do is, first of all, provide their name, second of all, provide their signature, and finally, add the date of signing this document. So that's the next step that we are going to initiate. But actually, before we get there, one other feature that I wanted to show you within SDocs is the live edit capability that Sarah mentioned a few minutes ago. This is going to be a feature that allows you to take a PDF produced by SDocs and apply changes to it on the fly without having to download it locally or really go through any, arduous steps. So when I click that edit pencil, it's going to open the document that we were just looking at, and we can come in here and really change in any information that we see fit. So if we scroll down and, let's say that maybe this phone number is incorrect, whatever changes may need to be made to this document, whether it's data-based or formatting-based, can be made here on the fly. Once we're satisfied with them, we will click save. And at this point, the document changes are going to be committed. You can even set this up with version history so that every time the user clicks save, a new version of the document is retained, therefore allowing you to see how a document has evolved over the various edits that an individual or even a team may be making. So coming back to this page, the next thing that we're going to do is take this document and send it out via email for signature. And to initiate that, we'll click this button here. Now, upon clicking this button, it's going to bring us to the SDocs email screen. And this is the screen that the user would interact with, whether they're sending out a signature request or simply a document as an attachment. And on this screen, you'll see that almost all of the information has been automatically filled out for our user. That's thanks to the email template that we chose in addition to the PDF template. Now, the SDocs email templates are very similar in concept to out-of-the-box Salesforce email templates. The main distinction is that they have additional capabilities. And what I mean by additional capabilities is they're able to merge data, they can apply conditional formatting, multiple images, really anything that a PDF template can do, an email template can do as well. Here in this specific example, you'll see that we've provided a default email message. Now we do have the capability of coming in here and adding some personalization, but again, just giving us a really good starting point to work with. The other benefit to the email templates is that we're capable of automatically filling in any of the fields on the email itself. In this case, we have our customer's address in the to field. We also have a default subject line provided. Now, any of these fields can be pre-populated. Any of them can also be locked down in the event that the end user should not be changing the information. In this case, you'll see that I cannot remove or edit the to field, but I can edit the subject line at will. So the next thing that we're going to do is click send on this email. And at this point, the signature request is going to be delivered to our recipient. Now, before I actually open that signature request, what I do want to show you is where the data is going to link back to our record, because all of this is going to be automatically tracked on the record that we use to initiate both the document and e-signature process. So first of all, the documents that we've created will show up here in this SDocs related list automatically. You'll see the PDF and the email both automatically linked. You can also use this to go back to a document after it's been generated and potentially edit it, re-provide it to a client, as well as record-keeping purposes, of course. SDocs is also capable of saving the document to attachments or files within Salesforce. We can even integrate with third-party storage solutions like Box, S3, Google Drive, and any other. The other information that's going to link up to our record is a record that shows us the actual signature request that we just sent out. And really the most important thing about this signature request record is the signed status field. This is going to allow us to keep track of exactly where a document is in its progress, whether it's been viewed, signed, partially signed, declined, and a few other statuses. But this is also a completely reportable object. And the thing that I like to see done with this signed status field is using native Salesforce reporting capabilities to run a report and see all of my team's unsigned contracts for the last quarter, for instance. This is going to come back into play here in a few minutes once we actually sign the contract, because this field updating can also be used to kick off downstream actions. The example I like to think of in that case is maybe we're sending out an MSA to our customer that needs to be completed in order for them to proceed with the purchase. Once we have that contract signed and this field updates to completed, that can set the opportunity to closed won. So again, just another example. But without further ado, what I'll do is toggle over to the actual inbox, and we should see that the email has come through that is prompting our recipient to view and sign the document. So really the only thing that we have to do to begin is click this view and sign button, and it's going to open a page that is still within the context of your own Salesforce instance, because at no point is this leaving Salesforce. Now, the first thing that we have to do in order to view a document is go through a two-factor authentication process. And to do that, we simply click send email, and it's going to send us an email PIN code that we then enter on the screen in order to verify that we are indeed who we are supposed to be. So I'll simply copy and paste this over here. I will also consent to do business electronically, and then click continue to view the actual document. One thing to keep in mind is that this two-factor authentication can be disabled in the event that you want your customer or signer to be able to access the document as quickly as possible. Another thing to keep in mind is that this page is completely customizable. So you can change the logo that appears here so that it uses your own corporate logo. You can even change the verbiage that appears so that it's prompting the user in a more specific way to your use case. But once we've gone through and, oh yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Paul, just a couple of quick questions. One from myself and one from the audience. And I'll start with the audience. A question Neha, she said, is it possible to dynamically add multiple records in the same document? So when using a mass merge features, can we add all the records in one single table instead of two separate documents joined together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that is something that we can do. You can, of course, have separate documents for those separate records, or you can condense them down into a single collated PDF that shows you all of the important information in a single file.
Great.
All right. So I
remember what my question was. I'm sorry. And the other question is, so when you turn off the verifications for signing, then you can forward documents to be signed by another person, and it won't require them to be signing it from that user's email address, right?
That's exactly correct. And that's our delegation functionality that, if you receive a signature request, you say, oh, my manager needs to sign this, or maybe someone's out of office, you can simply forward the email on to the appropriate person and have them sign in your place without having to reissue the contract or, redo any work. All right, great question. So now we are on the signature page, and we'll see our familiar auction, pamphlet that we put together. What I'm going to do is just skip ahead to where our input is requested on the last page by using this next input button. Now, this is going to take us down to our actual, S-sign inputs. And the first input that we're asking our recipient to fill in is just typing in their name, similar to printing on a physical contract. What I will do here is just type in my name. Now, this is a text-based input that can also be used to ask for other types of information, like maybe keying in their address. Now, this also has additional functionality in the form of taking whatever our signer has filled in and writing it back to a designated field in Salesforce. The example that I like to think of, again, on the address, if we maybe wanted to take what our recipient has keyed in and save it to the account address field, it's absolutely capable of having that bidirectional communication. You can even set it up with Salesforce data validation rules in the event that you're asking for maybe a credit card number or a social security number, and we want to make sure that it's well-formatted data prior to allowing our signer to submit the document. So completely compatible with that functionality that Salesforce offers.
So on the signature page, I can have Salesforce validation rule errors that will show up if, for example, like you're saying, one of those fields is linked to a data field in the back. Will the error display on the signing page?
Yes, absolutely. So when the signer attempts to click submit, it's going to say, if the error message we have set up is social security must be 9 digits long, formatted in this specific way, the Salesforce validation rule error will be displayed on this page, allowing them to quickly, update the information so that it's accepted.
That's great.
All right, now the next thing that we have here is our signature input, and we have a couple of options when it comes to the signature input. We can either click this text to signature checkbox to have it build something for us, or more realistically, we can manually draw out our signature. And this is going to be completely compatible with mobile devices like tablets and phones, of course, compatible with desktops as well. Once our signature is added, then we just have to click Add Signature, and it's embedded into the document. Now, the final field that we have here, you'll notice has been automatically filled for us, and this is the date of signing. Now, we can open it up so that our signer is manually choosing the date themselves, but in this case, we wanted to reduce the amount of time that our signer spends on this screen, and just fill this in for them. Now, S-Sign is also capable of asking for other types of fields that we don't see here. One example is asking for the signer's initials. You can also ask them to check a checkbox, maybe to denote that they've read terms and conditions or would like to opt into an optional warranty. Finally, you can ask them for selection from a drop-down pick list. And that pick list can be manually defined within the template itself, or it can be linked to a Salesforce pick list field and just inherit the values that already exist in your system. The other thing that S-Sign is going to be completely compatible with is the multiple signer use case. In the event that we have 2 or more parties that need to sign our contract, S-Sign is going to have a smart routing feature that goes first of all to the first party that needs to sign. Upon their completion, is automatically sent to the second party, so on and so forth. You can even set it up with smart notifications throughout the process so that if it's hung up on a single signer and they haven't signed it after 5 days, for instance, S-Sign sends out an automatic email reminding them that their signature is required. And that takes us through the signing process. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is click submit here. And at this stage, it's going to take our signed version of the contract and link it back to the record in Salesforce. It's also going to send the signed copy to our signer via email for their own records. And finally, send an email notification to the Salesforce user who initially requested the signature, letting them know that this document has now been completed. Like I said earlier, it can also be used to kick off downstream actions in Salesforce, like creating a new record, updating a record, whatever it may be. And here in just a moment, I'll show you what that signed copy looks like, because there's some key additional information that is added into the signed published version of our document.
So then we could automatically close one our opportunities once we have the proposal signed, coming right through SDocs. We don't even have to go back and mark it close one.
That is exactly right. Yep, and what we're looking at now is that signed copy of the contract. And of course, it's going to include the inputs that we filled out. But the most interesting thing that I want to show here is this audit trail page. And this is going to be all of the important compliance information around the signature request. This is going to show you things like when a request was created, viewed, and submitted, the signer's name, email, and IP address. as well as this unique hash of the document that can be used to verify its legitimacy should that ever be called into question. Now, you can disable this audit trail page in the published version of the document if you don't want your customer to see that this information is tracked, but it will always be stored into the database, again, for compliance purposes.
Paul, we had a couple of questions. First of all, from Charlotte, can you customize the error messages? For example, if the signer misses a field or their entry doesn't pass validation?
Yes, absolutely. So you can customize that. So by default, it's going to, if they miss a required field, it's going to say such and such field is required, but you do have the ability to customize it beyond that. And then as far as the data not being entered correctly, that's going back to the data validation rule error message, explanation that I gave. It's going to, just inherit that data validation error, allowing you to, again, customize that.
Okay, great. And I guess it would be our final question from Chris. It says, can S-Sign handle a hybrid dynamic manual identification of signers? No, let me rephrase it. Can S-Sign handle an hybrid dynamic manual identification of signers if multiple are needed? For example, she says she has 2 internal managers that need to sign, however, need to manually identify a customer signer.
So yeah, I believe that that's something, and let me just pull up the question and reread through that. Just bear with me for 1 second. So example, if I have 2.
Yeah, so what we would probably do there, Chris, is use the inputs for one of the managers to look up the contact. But Paul, you're gonna have to tell me if we can use lookups as part, because we may not be able to. I think that's what we're trying to get to is it in the document, or maybe the runtime prompt for one of those managers to select which is the customer that needs to sign.
Yeah, absolutely. So reading through this question, I think my interpretation of this is that, we do have the 2 internal managers that need to sign, and we don't want the Salesforce user to manually key in their information each time, but we do want the Salesforce user to key in the customer's email address at the time of sending the request. And that is absolutely something that is, capable of being handled by S-Sign. You can identify which profiles need to automatically be filled out and which ones we should leave up to the Salesforce user to fill in at runtime.
Great. So we're about time. I'm happy to stay a couple minutes after to just answer the rest of these questions, but I want to be respectful of everyone else's times as well. We've got a couple more questions. I think, Paula, let me know if you're up for handling these last couple of questions, and we'll make these the last ones.
All right, excellent. That sounds good. So the first question that we have here, could you please provide pointers or examples on implementing multiple records in a single document? And I can actually definitely show a live example of that here. So let me toggle over to a different object, and we'll use the account because that might be a little more familiar than the custom object that we were working with to start things off. And here on this account, I will quickly just generate a document. If I can get rid of the Zoom controls, I will quickly just generate a document that is going to show us the related opportunities that are linked up to our account. So I'll just choose my account summary template and click next step. And once the document generates, I'll open it up and show you what that multiple record scenario looks like.
Yeah, and I think I could take this second question here from if the signing page is for accessible customers using screen readers. And yeah, the signing page should be just a regular web page. So if they're using the screen reader on their phone, because it is mobile compatible, or on their computer, the screen reader should be able to read it just as it does a normal web page.
Yes, that's exactly right. And going back to the other question, you'll see here that this is a table that is showing us information about multiple opportunity records that are linked up to our account. And it is actually just a point and click interface in order to embed functionality like this into your template. There's no code required to set this kind of thing up.
Great. Well, that looks like answers it, and looks like that is the gist of the question. So thank you all for attending, and thank you, Sarah and Paul, for being such awesome guests. I'm so grateful that you spent the time with us today, and we got to teach some amazing things to people interested about SDocs.
Thank you for having us, Alex, and the whole Ennube team. It's been wonderful. We look forward to speaking with you guys more, and anyone who has questions can reach out to us directly.
Thank you, everyone, for your participations. And of course, we appreciate your contributions, Sarah, Paul, and Alex. It's been a great session, so thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
all.
everyone.
Take care.